Elliot Roger here. Well, this is my last video. It all has to come to this. Tomorrow is the day of retribution.
Yo, who the fuck is MattCMG?
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Internet Idiocracy, the show where we critique and make fun of the dumbest shit from around the internet. I'm your host, MattCMG, aka Soy Boy iDubbbz, and today I'm shaking with excitement. I'm shaking with excitement because today we gotta talk about sex. But first, I'm gonna take you back to the past to watch the shitty vids that suck ass. Back in 2019, I released an Internet Idiocracy episode about incels. In that video, I went over the basics of what incels are and some of their beliefs, but the problem with that video is that it's bad. It's not good. There were a lot of misunderstandings on my part. I got basic things wrong. I didn't really do my research and was just kind of going off of my preconceived knowledge of what incels were based on videos I had seen at the time. This was pre-being terminally online, right? It was also at a time where Internet Idiocracy didn't really have like a defined formula yet. I was still kind of experimenting with the show and with the channel as a whole, so the video just kind of isn't good. Plus, I absolutely hate my demeanor in that video. Like, I came across as really pompous, and the way I talked and delivered jokes was just fucking awful. I can't bring myself to watch the video. I would cringe myself to death. So, this Valentine's Day, I wanted to do something I don't think I've ever done before on the channel, and essentially remake that video. But I'm going to be doing it differently than I did it the first time, because some of my opinions on the subject have actually changed quite a bit since then. See, something that I didn't mention in the original video is that I, by definition, am an incel. This time around, I seek to do the topic justice and give a genuinely nuanced take on it by looking at both sides of the argument, and of course making fun of them, because why the fuck wouldn't we? So smash that motherfucking like button like an incel getting it in for the first time. Let's get weird, let's get wild, let's get right into the strange world of incels. Again, it's a redux. It's not funny. You should kill yourself.
3, 2, 1.
Go to blast!
Well, it certainly wouldn't be a condescending YouTube video if I didn't front-load it with basic-ass definitions of words, now would it? You know, hypocrisy is defined as... Shut your fucking mouth. Kill yourself. In case you're somehow unaware, incel is a term that is short for involuntary celibate, and is used to describe dudes who want to have sex but simply can't. The word is often used as an insult to virgin males, but in the most basic sense of the word, it literally just means, like, involuntarily a virgin. I know celibate doesn't mean virgin, but you know what I fucking mean. You get the idea. You know what I'm talking about. It can also refer to the group of people who live by the incel ideology. I'll be using both definitions, but I think you can use basic third grade fucking context clues to get which one I'm talking about, right? That's pretty obvious, but incels have a lot of other terminology, so much so that I can't feasibly go over all of it in this video. There is a whole ass glossary about this shit. It's actually kind of wild. You know, instead of going through like every individual thing that you'd ever need to know ever, I'll just focus on the basics and the necessities for what we need to be talking about in this video. Though I would also recommend the Incel Wiki if you want like a deeper dive into something super specific. Holy fuck, go outside. Firstly, there's the Chads, which I'm sure you've all heard of. It's become a pretty common internet term outside of incel circles. Chads are essentially dudes that are good looking and they frequently get pussy because of that. They're typically described as having easy lives due to their natural confidence, their looks, all that shit. The incel strives to be the Chad, alright? You know, you gotta get that fucking, that Chad-like jawline, you know what I'm saying? Go to the stupid fucking gum things. What are they called?
Ostracized? If you want to get Chad-like facial features, you have to do this.
Yeah. Then you have the Stacys, which are essentially the female versions of Chads. They're conventionally attractive women, they fuck frequently, and they therefore live relatively easy lives because of their looks. Don't worry, we'll be getting into the specifics of that shit later. Many Stacys are extremely sexually active, to the point where they're considered degenerate by incels, which is where the roasties come in. Roasties are women who have had a large amount of sexual partners, and when you start putting stuff in the pussy enough times, it starts to change the shape of the labia. The pussy starts to look like roast beef, hence roasty. I'm thinking Arby's. It's basically just a non-explicit way of saying whore. That's really all it is. Other words for women include femoid, foids, holes, toilets, and more. Personally, I'm a fan of toilets. That one's fucking funny. You fucking toilet. You filthy toilet. Like... Of course, there are variations of all the stuff we've talked about, like, there's Volcels, Chad Lights, Beckys, etc. But let's talk about pills. In the Matrix, Neo is offered either the red pill or the blue pill. The red pill tells you the hard truth of the world, the blue pill lets you continue to live in the convenient lie. This terminology has been adopted by political circles, but also by incels. There is some crossover there, but I'm gonna try to avoid the politics of all this shit because that went so well last time. The incel version of the red pill contains a multitude of ideas, such as that in the dating game, men are seen as disposable by women are naturally materialistic and shallow, and that society has always been driven by men trying to attain women. You got the 80-20 rule, hypergamy, shit that we'll get into later, right?
Don't take the red pill, that's for cucks who
No, Jimmy, take the red pill. It's great. I love the red pill!
The incel version of the blue pill is quite the opposite. These are the people who are completely okay with the things currently are and don't see the problem posited by incels. Blue pillars want to believe that, personality is the most important thing when it comes to dating, that just being confident is enough, and refuse to acknowledge the many statistics and theories that suggest otherwise. Instead of thinking critically about the way things are, blue pillars are complacent with believing whatever the mainstream ideals are, even if they aren't even accurate.
So glad I took the blue pill.
But in the middle of the red and blue pills is the purple pill. It's like my third favorite D12 song. Purple pillars are basically, the enlightened centrists of incels, if you will. They believe that both sides have merit to them. I think the Incel Wiki describes it best when they say it's a, quote, way to refer to men who have internalized certain red pill truths but still hold certain blue pill ideals. In some incel circles, the term has a negative connotation, like, oh, you can't commit to our side, but for the most part, it's apparently become much more common and accepted. Or maybe not. I don't fucking know. If I had to choose a pill, I think my indecisive ass would probably pick this one. All the really hardcore incels just clicked off this fucking video. They're like, oh, this fucking purple-pilled, blue-pilled cock just fucking said the purple pills are normal. Oh, what the fuck, man? There's one more pill that we need to discuss. The black pill. The black pill is essentially just an extreme version of the red pill, but with a doomery twist to it. This makes sense considering incel culture is heavily tied to places like R9K and other doomer-centric parts of the internet where the term has non-incel related uses. VP motherfuckers be like, black pill me on why Sword and Shield are bad games, right? You know what I mean? The difference is that while both red and black pillars accept the harsh truth, the red pillars are more likely to use that knowledge to game the system, as it were, while the black pillars simply quit and just kind of strive to prove the truth to everybody else, right?
That's the black pill, Jimmy. That's the biggest black pill of all.
I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but black pillars are what the media thinks incels are. These are like the stereotypical incels, right? The hopeless green text, misogyny, government mandated GF, psychotic shit, right?
Who is this 4chan?
I realize that this whole definition shit is probably a little grating for those of you kind of already familiar with the topic, but this is something that we kind of have to all be on the same page with. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about this kind of shit, and we need to clarify them, but if we can't even agree on what words mean, then we're not really having a conversation now, are we?
Jimmy, go to the brain cell subreddit. It'll really change, but it'll explain why Cindy doesn't love you. It's because you're a sub-8 male.
But now that we're on the same page, let's get into some arguments that incels have. This was something that I did not do in my original video, and I really wish that I did, because it's actually kind of eye-opening. Hope you're taking notes, because we're about to talk some statistics. There's gonna be a quiz later. Firstly, there are statistics upon statistics upon statistics that show that young men are having less and less sex. The main statistic that incels cite is this 2019 article from the Washington Post that shows that as time goes on, less men are having sex, or in other words, more men are incels. This graph shows that 23% of people aged 18 to 29 have reported no sex as of 2018, compared to less than 10% in 2008. This other graph further breaks that down by gender, showing that sexlessness in men has increased to 28% quite rapidly in recent years, while sexlessness for women of the same age range has only slightly increased to 18%. And this isn't the only study that's shown this either. Another study by the Institute of Family Studies shows a similar trend.
Look at this graph!
Incel or not, you gotta admit that this is some rather interesting information. Each graph and piece of data you see shows a spike in male sexlessness around 2010, and I think it's kind of clear why. What happened in 2010? Smartphones became a thing, or at least became popularized. What came out in 2012 and popularized online dating? Tinder. Dating apps like Tinder make people more picky with who they date and or fuck, and social media in general has warped people's perceptions of other people. It's a lot harder to date today than it was 50 or even 20 years ago, right? You know, back in the ye old days of pre-1980, people would just settle down with the first person of the opposite sex they held hands with. Today, we have way more options with the internet, hence why people can now afford to be picky, because they don't have to be limited by just their immediate area. Tinder actually leads into a pretty interesting concept though, the 80-20 rule. This rule, in terms of Inceldom, refers to an unequal distribution in sexual partners for men and women, with the numbers referring to 20% of men getting 80% of the women. The 80% is actually a bit of an exaggeration, as studies have shown that it's more closer to 60%, but that's neither here nor there. With Tinder, for instance, this indicates that the top 20% of men who use the app are viewed as attractive enough for the 60% of women who use the app, while the other 80% of men are considered subpar. These numbers don't just apply to Tinder either, as they are consistent across other dating apps such as Bumble or OkCupid. This data seems to reaffirm what the previous studies have shown, that though sexlessness for both men and women have increased, men still have less sex than women because women are much pickier than men about who they fuck. And I think this leads quite nicely into the concept of heightism, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. You know, you ever been on a dating app or whatever, you see a woman with shit in their bios like 6'0" or GTFO or something like that. I just made that up on the spot, but I'm willing to bet it's a thing. But you get what I mean, right? Women that are extremely picky about men's height. You know, some women claim to only be attracted to men who are 6 feet tall or taller, which from an evolutionary standpoint makes some sense. You know, women want to feel protected, so a man being taller than them helps them feel that, even if it is just like a monkey brain thing and they don't actually know why. This is a really prevalent thing on dating apps, to the point where men shorter than 6 foot consider themselves worthless and undateable, and reaffirms the incel belief that simply being born with good genetics is the only way to get women. You know, you can work out and looks max all you want, but you can't do anything to get taller. I'm saving a lot of my interpretation of the data for later in the video, but this one is simply an over-exaggeration, I think. Are there women shallow enough to only date men 6 foot and up? Of course there are, but at the end of the day, can most women really tell the difference between 5'10" and 6 foot? You know, like, unless you're like fucking Bagel Boss with his Napoleon complex, you're probably overthinking your height.
Why is it okay for women to say, oh, you're 5 feet on dating sites? You should be dead? That's okay?
Who said that to you here? Nobody.
Women in general have said it on dating sites.
However, bringing us back to Doomerville, let's talk about the halo effect. The halo effect is a theory that states that people will view those who are conventionally attractive to also have attractive personalities, while those who are less attractive have less attractive personalities, even though that may not be the case at all. Oh fuck, the halo theme fucked me up. Breathe, cunt, breathe! Me giving CPR to a pussy. The example that incel proponents of this theory often point to is that of Jeremy Meeks. Jeremy Meeks was a gang member who was arrested in 2014 for felony weapons charges and was a convicted felon even before that. Apparently he almost beat some guy to death or some kind of crazy shit, some wild shit. Not exactly a stand-up guy, right? Kind of a piece of shit. But in 2014, as some of you may recall, women were absolutely wet over this dude's mugshot, to the point where the GoFundMe that his mother started to help pay for his bail and pay for a lawyer received a pretty sizable amount of donations. After he was released from prison, Meeks ended up becoming a male model due to the popularity of women whose snatches were just dripping from looking at this dude, and he is now worth several $1 million. To summarize this for you, this scumbag who did scumbag shit and served time for his scumbag shit became a famous model because a bunch of women online thought he was hot with zero regard to his scumbag actions. People were willing to forget about his unsavory past just because he was attractive and not because he actually demonstrated that he had changed in any way. Obviously, this is just one example, but other examples include the simpery over serial killers like Ted Bundy and the like. Women need to fucking relax with that shit. That shit's weird. That's concerning.
What don't women understand about men?
Cheeseburgers.
But, you know, despite these very specific examples, this kind of thing is more common in the real world than you might expect. For instance, studies have shown that servers at restaurants get better tips if they are conventionally attractive, or that teachers will immediately assume that the better-looking students are more studious than the less good-looking ones. Or remember that opera singer from Britain's Got Talent or some shit, where everybody expected her to suck solely based on her appearance, but then she blew everybody away with how talented she was? That's the reverse halo effect in action. It takes a lot to impress
Simon fucking Cowell.
People often say don't judge a book by its cover, but it seems that that's all we do. It's all I do. because I don't read. The halo effect relates back to Inceldom in that when women are only attracted to looks, they completely disregard the fact that the good-looking guy might actually be a piece of shit. The reverse halo effect is also at play here, where women won't even give some dudes the time of day because they're unattractive, even though they may be successful in life and have great personalities. Well, sure, it's kind of on some like nice guy TM shit. It does happen. There is some merit to it. Top of my lady, 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 top of my lady. Hold on. Let's get this shit. Let's get this shit. Let's get this shit. But when you combine all that we've discussed in this section and then some that's kind of beyond the scope of the video, you get the concept of hypergamy, which is the idea that women will always try to date up, as it were. According to incels, to women, there's always a guy who's better looking, has more money, etc., which makes the majority of men undesirable to most women. This concept also applies to men, but is disproportionately seen in women, as seen with the 80-20 rule. I think you guys get the picture here. Regardless of your opinions on incels or their culture, it's impossible to deny what the statistics have to say. You know, women have gotten choosier with their sexual partners due in part to social media, which leaves many men sexless, and it's rather unfair in many ways. To say that incels don't have a point is super dismissive of the actual problems that exist. So those are all the facts and statistics that incels believe, but before we get into the interpretation of said data and my thoughts on all of it, I first want to address the media in relation to incels. As I'm sure many of you know, in recent years the word incel has been vastly misrepresented by mainstream news outlets, with many of their actual beliefs being ignored in favor of spinning them as this hate group that you should be cautious and afraid of, and even using the term as an insult. I shouldn't have to tell you that this is all kind of fucked. I say kind of because stereotypical incels do exist, you know, the kind that unironically hate women and want to commit violent crimes and shit, but those motherfuckers are a vast minority of most incels. You know, examples like Elliot Rodger often come to mind. For those who don't know, Elliot Rodger was a college kid who resented the fact that women didn't want to date him, which combined with his pre-existing mental disorders, resulted in him shooting up Isla Vista in retaliation before fucking JFKing himself. Turned his head into a fucking salsa bowl. Arriba. This tragedy is often cited as the reason you should be like scared of incels or whatever, but it's actually the only notable crime directly caused by Inceldom, and in reality there have actually been very few notable incel motivated crimes. You know, there may be some minor ones here and there, but nothing major, nothing like a mass shooting or anything like what Elliot Rodger did.
Shit. Jesus Christ. Why'd you give me this fucking thing? I thought this was airsoft. I'm never doing that again in my life. Holy shit.
Many crimes that the media make out to be incel motivated, such as, you know, the Bianca Devins murder, for example, were completely unrelated to incel. They just spun it that way because it fit their narrative better. This often leads to a lot of unwarranted hate towards communities like 4chan and a potential fear of men who claim to be virgins. Like, oh, you're a virgin? You must be an incel. Red flag, sweaty. It's incredibly ironic in the sense that it kind of makes the problem worse, you know what I mean? It ends up becoming this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, where people fear incels because there's this crime associated with the idea of them, which could create further isolation and possibly prompt an actual incel motivated crime. And that's probably what the media wants, but that's neither here nor there.
Look, Pim. Hi. I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
You know, I was originally gonna do a bit here where I went to the incel forums and read like some posts on there to prove that it's really only like this, you know, small minority of incels that are misogynistic and whatnot. But I ended up seeing a whole assload of that. However, in my browsing of the forums, doing research for this video, I found a post on a thread about how the media treats incels that I think accurately describes why this seems to be the case. Reading some of the stuff on here, of course they would. Problem is, they don't realize the reason this place is so extreme is because every mainstream forum/social media platform has banned any non-hyper-progressive thinking, including any wrong think about women. You know, cringe 1984 terminology aside, this is a pretty interesting thing to think about. You know, if you challenge the status quo on social media platforms like Twitter or TikTok or Reddit, you'll often be ridiculed off of those platforms. And if you're extreme enough, you might just be banned entirely. A certified Alex Jones moment. Not only does this push the hateful incels to the incel forums, making it seem like there are more hateful ones than there actually are, but it also creates more actual misogynists by reaffirming the idea that you like can't criticize women. And I feel like this is partially by design, right? When the media needs to do an incel hit piece, all they need to do is just go to the forums and cherry pick the psychos, when if you actually read most of the threads on there, many of them are pretty sensible. Well, you know, as sensible as you can get when you consider that people who unironically sad post on forums are just like incredibly cringe by default. I have these intense emotions. I'm gonna post about them on a fringe forum. Fuck you. Contrary to what the media makes them out to be, not all incels are violent, racist misogynists. Some are, obviously, but they are a vast minority. Most incels are simply just normal people who harbor no hate in their hearts. They're just lonely and fed up with the dating scene, and in many cases suffer from anxiety disorders or depression. You know, if people claim to take mental health seriously, then you have to include incels in that. You can't be like selective in who does and doesn't deserve treatment. You know what I'm saying? No, if your treatment is like, hey, government mandated gamer GF, maybe calm the fuck down. I don't know why you would want a gamer GF, dude. Fucking every gamer girl that I've ever met in my life has been fucking disgusting.
Bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Lick on these nuts and suck the dick.
If you remember earlier in the video, we talk about purple pillism, the idea that both red pillars and blue pillars of the incel community have merit to their ideas. This is the part of the video where I take that idea and go hard in the paint with it, because a lot of what we discussed throughout this video is just kind of cringe. The statistics are true, and many of the theories have merit to them, but what these things lack are context. Firstly, the whole like pill ideology is kind of biased and flawed right off the bat. You know, incels already view themselves as like based and red pilled and kind of antagonize anybody who they consider blue pilled, so many of those ideas don't really face scrutiny within their own communities. Like if you go to the incel wiki, for instance, you know, I know that's not like the end all be all of this shit, but I'm just using it as an example, right? The red pill page is just listing what incels already believe, while the blue pill page is a bunch of like debunks, and the general wording of it is very like negative. In this context, red pill is essentially like anybody who agrees with me, while anybody else is just like a blue pilled cuck or whatever, right? Like it's kind of ironic how incels are all about being able to speak out about the issues they face and scrutinizing the social norm, but as soon as somebody scrutinizes them, even in good faith, it's still seen as like blue pilling shit. That's not to say it's inherently tribalist, but it's certainly biased.
I fight women.
Hell, the incel wiki is filled with just clearly biased stuff like this. Like Chad's and Stacy's are pretty damn similar, right? But the Chad page is just like, hey, here's what a Chad is, with no real like explicit negative vibe, while the Stacy page is like, Stacy's are all dumb whores who love getting fucked by Chad. Like the third line of the Stacy page is literally, she is an entitled whore whose rich daddy funds her Caribbean vacations to go find herself. Like I see the trope you're going for there, but like it just seems way too specific, you know what I mean? Like the Chad page is very matter of fact and filled with statistics and shit, but the Stacy page is like really short and filled with just sarcastic remarks. Like it's clear what type of incel wrote this, and it doesn't seem very objective to me, because it's not objective. They clearly have a bias. Plus, the validity of these studies are rarely scrutinized from what I've seen. Now, I'm not saying they aren't accurate, but seeing them without context is rather misleading. You know, what's the sample size? How were these studies conducted? Much of that is left out by both the article and those who cite it. Like, I find it incredibly ironic how the Washington Post study that was mentioned earlier has its contents completely ignored. Many incels see like the graph showing the rise in male sexlessness, but then like immediately assume that the reason for that is that, you know, all women are whores, that must be the only reason, when if you actually read the article, they give plenty of very valid reasons as to why this is happening. You know, a lot of young adults are still living with their parents because the economy is so fucked, so it's harder to find a time and place to have sex if your parents are always 2 doors down. You know, technology has made it so that there are other things to do at night instead of sex, like, you know, video games or what have you. That's some true cell shit right there. Sorry, babe, can't have sex gaming right now. This is the part of the video with where my purple pill centrist bullshit starts coming out, right? The problem with viewing the world through statistics is that it completely disregards individual variation. You know, let's take the idea that on average, 60% of women want the top 20% of men. It's easy to look at statistics like these and think that 60% of women are just shallow whores who are in it for sex and money and nothing else. But if you actually go out into the world, you realize that not all women are like that. Unintentionally paraphrasing Murray in a video with fucking Joker vibes is probably not the best move.
Get what you fucking deserve!
Or take the hypergamy theory, for instance. It's easy to hear that and say, oh, women only want to marry up, the grass is always greener, to explain why women don't like you. But in believing that, you disregard the women out there who genuinely don't care about that shit. You know, and before, they don't exist, checkmate, libtard. Shut the fuck up, I'm getting to that. Here's an analogy for you. Statistically speaking, your chances of dying in a car crash are roughly 1 in
107.
Does that mean you're guaranteed to die in a car crash after like
107
trips or whatever? Of course not, because that shit is not consistent for each person. You know, some people are better drivers than others, so their chances decrease. Same goes for dating statistics. If the ideal male height that women are attracted to is 6 foot, then does that mean that no man under 6 foot ever gets pussy ever? Of course not. This is obviously not the case, because there are plenty of short dudes who get women, and not every woman is that shallow that they only care about height. The key word that many studies and statistics use is on average, meaning that this is most likely, this is where most people fall into. Most people does not mean all people. You can make pretty good assumptions about people based on statistics, but you know what they say about people who assume? They make an ass out of you and me. It was boomer as fuck. You get the point though. Generalizing people based on statistics instead of judging people as individuals is incredibly small brain.
The American people are tired of women.
The most common incel argument, above all else, is that no amount of money or looks maxing can fix bad genetics. You know, if you're born ugly, you're just fucked for life. You either cope with that or rope yourself. That's, you know what I'm saying? While there is some merit to this, like we discussed earlier with the halo effect, I think most incels who believe this kind of miss the point. You know, the reverse halo effect is the idea that people view ugly people to have ugly personalities, and it's not always true, but with most incels, this is like exactly the case. I should say most hardcore incels, not most incels. Whatever, I'm not gonna fucking re-record that, go fuck yourself. You know, it's not that you're ugly. It's that you're an asshole. You view women as objects to be won, and it shows through your actions. Despite doing all this, like, you know, in-depth research to explain what women actually want, there is often no attempt made to, like, better yourself or be a person women actually want to be with, which shows how entitled you think you are to sex. I am yet to hear a convincing argument for why anybody is entitled to sex. There just isn't one.
Sex.
I believe I made this point in my original Incels video. Can't say for sure, because I could not be fucked to rewatch it. But it's awfully ironic how incels are so against the idea of women being, you know, shallow or degenerate, yet are just as shallow themselves. Like, can you really blame the 9 out of 10 babe for not wanting to fuck you when you leave the house in sweatpants, a beanie, and a fucking Star Wars t-shirt? Like, you know, you do all this research so you know that her gash is most certainly not a frothing at the thought of some guy with unkempt facial hair and a torn metal band hoodie. So, like, why even bother thinking that's a valid option to do? You know what I mean? You know, when you set your standards so high because you believe you're entitled to such standards, then you've already lost. And this goes both ways. And just to reiterate, not all incels are like this, obviously, just the crazy ones. I'd like to end this section with an example. Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson. These two recently began dating after Kim divorced Kanye. Hope you're holding up easy.
Just so I could beat Pete Davidson's ass.
Pete Davidson is an incel's worst nightmare because he goes against all of the things that they claim to be true. You know, he's not that good looking and he's not rich compared to the women he's dated. Dude looks like the crusty day-old corpse of a 48-year-old leukemia patient. So how is it that he's dated all of these like attractive superstars, right? It's because he's funny. He's a comedian. Funny dudes are apparently in high demand right now, which I think is a testament to how personality matters way more than incels give it credit for. No, I'm not gonna go like full fucking libtard or whatever and say that it's like the only thing that matters, because that's obviously not true. But it's often completely brushed off by the incels who claim that it doesn't matter because women are just like materialistic and shallow to them. Even if 60% of women are as shallow as incels claim them to be, then who gives a shit? That's not the type of person you really want to be around anyways.
Jimmy got a brain blast when he went to the brain cell subreddit.
At the start of this video, I mentioned that I am, by definition, an incel. I'm a kissless virgin, never had a girlfriend, never had sex. And I feel like this puts me in a unique position with this video because I have more in common with the average incel than most people who make videos like these. I don't hate women, I don't think that all women are like materialistic whores, but I do recognize that the dating scene has a lot of double standards and that men often have a much harder time. Maybe I'm wrong or like a fucking, you know, blue-pilled cuck or whatever for saying this, but the vast majority of people who would be considered incels by definition are probably just like me. You know, we're just normal dudes who are socially inept or have, you know, depression or anxiety or whatever. It's actually really unfortunate how many people I've seen fall into the incel trap, as it were. Back when incel subreddits were a thing, I recall seeing multiple posts where guys would just post pictures of themselves and say something like, "Got rejected today. Am I really that ugly?" You know, and it's sad because many of these dudes weren't even necessarily that bad looking, but they've fallen so deep into incel culture that they think that if they're not like stereotypical Chad Thundercock, that they aren't worth it. And it certainly doesn't help that the comments would usually be like, you know, 40% people being genuinely supportive, giving actual advice, and like 60% people who seek to ridicule them further and make them feel worse about themselves and induct them into some real hardcore inceldom.
Kill yourself. Kill yourself in the name of it!
And it also doesn't help that, you know, like porn and other forms of media can be extremely damaging to one's view of women and sex. I kind of just brought that up on a whim, but you know, you guys know the meme. No, I think a good mindset to this shit is don't hate the player, hate the game. Really, with a fucking video game analogy, you soy boy cuck, you fucking piece of shit. hating women is not going to solve your problems, but playing the dating game will. Now, I'm not saying you should start simping because you're not gonna get very far. You know, working out or improving your drip or getting a good paying job are things that will make women notice you. And that's just how the game is played, for better or for worse. I have none of those things, but that's beside the point. I'm tall and skinny. I'm built like fucking Slender Man. They don't make clothes that fit me. Anyways, the point is, you have no right to complain about not getting girls if you don't even make an attempt. You know, don't be like Elliot Rodger or whatever and just like fucking, you know, sit there and wait for women to come up and fuck you. Because there's like a 99% chance that's not gonna fucking work, especially in this day and age. To risk Chad-splaining or sending like a fucking CW show or whatever, you have to like actually put yourself out there to see results. You know, like if you've genuinely tried multiple times to get a girl and you haven't seen results, then go ahead, complain all you want. But if you just like sit inside all day, you know, looking up fucking sex statistics and you just make no attempts to actually connect to others, then you have no right to bitch about it. And like I hinted at earlier, being terminally online is no way to view the world. You know, if all you do is like browse 4chan or Reddit, you're gonna have a view of the world that's not representative of what it actually is, regardless of political standing and regardless of any of that other shit. You know, all this time spent researching and doing like a fucking dissertation about why you think women don't like you and watching like pickup artist videos and shit could be spent making an effort to like improve yourself and not just pick up girls, but maybe find the one that actually likes you for who you are. You know, and all that gay shit.
I am gay. I have relationships with men and sex with men.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
Like, do you realize how cringe you sound when you start spouting off fucking dating statistics the minute a woman doesn't look you in the eyes when you walk by her? Like, get some fucking perspective. Now, unlike last time we did this, I'm not gonna sit here and try to, like, offer up a solution to Inceldom. Because honestly, I don't know. I may be God, but I don't have the answers to everything.
You ain't got the answers, man! You ain't got the answers!
No, you'll often hear arguments like, you know, incels should just date femcels, which doesn't really work. Or, you know, bro, just like hire a prostitute, dude, which kind of misses the point. Or even like government mandated gamer GF, which is cringe. There really isn't a clear solution without a complete and utter reconstruction of thousands of years of human society. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, but even if it was built in a day, there's no way people would be able to handle such a drastic change overnight. You know, unfortunately, incels are just kind of stuck with the way things are, but that doesn't mean that you can't try to change things. You know, if incels were able to voice their frustrations in a non-combative, non-misogynistic way, and maybe distance themselves from some of the incel terminology, they might be able to actually get through to some people. You know, the hardcore edginess a lot of incels display is often very off-putting to normies, so maybe consider toning it down if you want people to like actually take you seriously. When has being edgy ever really gotten you anywhere except for like tell-alls, you know what I'm saying?
The only reason that you're lonely is 'cause you're fat and gay.
You know, at the end of the day, we're all just a bunch of lonely fuckers who are just trying to look for someone to share their lives and or genitals with. Such is the way of life, and it can be hard to put yourself in the vulnerable state of connecting with others. You know, you'll experience pain, sadness, loneliness, and horniness, but is it not the bad times that make the good times worth living? So go out, be free, don't be a dick, and for the love of God, touch some fucking grass. You know, like, comment, subscribe, follow all that shit, Patreon. I've MattCMG, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
I smell pennies. No more.
I'm alive again, more alive than I have been in my whole entire life. I can see these people's ears perk up as I begin to spaz the pen. I'm a little bit sicker than most. Shit's finna get thick again. They say the competition is stiff, but I get a hard dick from the shit and I stick it in. I ain't never giving in again. Caution to the wind, complete freedom. Look at these rappers, how I treat them. So why the fuck would I join them when I beat them? They call me a freak cause I like to spit on these pussies before I eat them. Man, get these whack cocksuckers off stage. Where the fuck is Kanye when you need him? Snatch the microphone, bitch, I'ma let you finish in a minute. Yeah, that rapper's type it. I'm about to spit the greatest verse of all time, so you might wanna go back to the lab tonight and scribble out them rhymes you were gonna spit and start over from scratch right once. But I'm afraid that I ain't gonna make no difference when I rip the stage and tear it in half tonight. It's an adrenaline rush, feel the bass dump in the place of the way to the parking lot, fella. Set fire to the mic, ignite the crowd. You can see the sparks of hot metal, cold hearted. The day I broke guard at the game, I so started the rock fella, but I'm not even in my haunches. You can still get roasted cause the margin's not mellow till I'm toppling from the top. I'm not gonna stop. I'm stand up, my monopoly board. That means I'm on top of my game, and it don't stop till the hip don't hop anymore. Means so good that you can't say, cause it ain't even cool for you to sound cocky anymore. You would just get sick cause you spit. These fools can't drool or dribble the drop anymore. You could never break my stride, never slow the moment. I bet any moment about to blow. Never take my pride, killing the flow. Slow fitting in the opponent is getting no mercy. Mark my words and letting up relentless. I smell blood. I don't give a fuck. Keep giving them hell. It was you when I fell and needed help. Love, you get no love. It's a little too late to say that you're sorry now. You kicked me when I was down, but what you said was, that's right, I don't need you, don't wanna see you, but you get no. You show me nothing but hate. You ran me into the ground. What comes around goes around. Yeah, I don't need you. That's right, I don't need you, don't wanna see you, but you get no love, no love, no love, no love. But you get no love, no love, no love. I don't need you, but you get no love.